If you're a creative working solo, you're not alone. Being a one-person shop has its ups and downs, especially in today's world of constant connectivity. So today we're talking about the effects that working alone can have on you, how to embrace the good, manage the bad, and find balance in your artistic life. This episode is the Lonely Artist Survival Guide. I've been on my own since the beginning of 2012, and although I love the freedom, the isolation can sometimes take its toll. And I know isolation is a relative term. It varies from artist to artist. And for me, during work hours, I can go a few weeks without ever hearing a collaborative voice. And what makes this much worse is that our post-pandemic lives have made us more comfortable with this seclusion and with us thinking that this is normal. And of course, we know that's not true. So let's look at what's really going on in our creative isolation. There's something magical about having your own little artistic bubble, right? No interruptions, no compromises, just you and your ideas. You can dig deep, experiment freely, and create something that's you, 100% you. And that freedom is priceless. But here's the flip side. Too much alone time can lead to overthinking and second guessing. Without fresh eyes, you might miss a better way to do things, which has happened to me more times than I'd like to admit. Then there's the loneliness and that push and pull of our connected online lives. If we can talk to anyone in the world, why are we so increasingly isolated? According to a recent Cigna study, 58% of Americans reported feeling lonely, and remote workers were right at the top of that list. To have your remote life work for you, we have to first look at how your personality figures into the equation. The truth is that some of us are wired for solitude and some of us aren't. Working solo might feel like home sweet home if you're an introvert like me, because we feel that we're in our element. We're sipping coffee, we're listening to our favorite playlist, and letting the ideas flow. But even the most introverted among us need human connection sometimes. Extroverts, well, that's a different story. You're probably itching for a brainstorming session to bounce ideas around. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you might find yourself swinging between your alone time and craving a little company. And no matter where you fall into the spectrum, you need to build a routine that works for you. An introverted designer could join a virtual critique group, let's say once a month, to stay connected. And at the same time, an extroverted writer could benefit from a co-working space twice a week for that social buzz. Research from a Buffer survey on the state of remote work found that 20% of remote workers struggle with loneliness, showing that even self-sufficient types benefit from occasional connections. And that brings us to what I call the illusion of connectivity and how we can master it. We live in an age where you can collaborate with someone halfway across the world without leaving your couch. Platforms like Discord and Behance make finding people and sharing your work ridiculously easy. So taking some time to search for fellow artists on these platforms can really pay off. But we have to remember that being alone and constantly scrolling can backfire. And we've talked about this in some of my other videos. It's hard not to compare your behind-the-scenes struggles with someone else's highlight reel. So instead of falling into that comparison trap, look for meaningful connections. A photographer could join a local photo walk group or a private online community where people share raw, unfiltered feedback. And even in the beginning, if you can't find a fellow artist to get feedback from, ask a family member, a friend, or even your mail carrier. Anyone with eyes and ears will show you another perspective. It's all about finding places where you can learn and grow and not just scroll with envy. This may be harder for some of you who live in very remote areas or have very limited access on where to find these groups. So I've actually been thinking about creating a space where all types of creatives can share their work and receive constructive feedback. So let me know in the comments if this is something that you'd be interested in. So finding feedback is the first step. Now let's get to the really good stuff with the beauty of collaboration. Working alone doesn't mean that you have to do everything alone. Collaborating can bring new energy to your work and open doors that you didn't know existed. And the best part is, it doesn't mean that you have to give up control. And your approach can be as varied as your personality. There are project-based partnerships where you collaborate with someone for a specific project, For example, if you're a writer, you could partner with an illustrator for a children's book, and you would both be bringing something unique to the table. And there's also creative swaps where you can trade skills or critiques. A musician might collaborate with a graphic designer to create album art and in return offer a custom soundtrack for the designer's portfolio. And of course, there are shared platforms where you can participate in group exhibitions or writer anthologies. It's like being part of a team without losing your individuality. And with these, we need to remember that collaboration isn't just about productivity, it's about connection. Adobe's creativity and business study shows that 76% of people feel more inspired when working with others. And what we should figure into that is that your state of mind and your personality are really what drives these collaborations. And many times more than your creativity. It's essential to really know who you're collaborating with. Get to know the person first. If possible, just don't jump into a project partnership. First connect and let a collaboration grow from that. Make sure that you go in with an open mind and a willingness to compromise. And just as important, make sure that you're being heard and ultimately that your collaborator is like-minded. And I've had very positive and very negative experiences collaborating. I work alone most of the time, so when I do collaborate, I have a very loose general sense of what I want to see, and I let it grow organically from there. And that doesn't mean that I'm wishy-washy or non-committal with my contributions, but I tend to enjoy the process as much as the result. Remember, we're talking about breaking out of our alone time and interacting with people. I do look forward to watching and learning from someone else's work, adding my input and seeing where it goes. The problem is, in some of the collaborations that I was involved in, the other person was very determined on the outcome and how my skill set would affect their work. And for me, that's not collaborating. That's just vending out my talents to expand someone else's toolbox. In a very broad sense, there's nothing wrong with this approach. There are many brilliant folks out there who have a singular vision and stick to it, whether it be in a solo or a collaborative situation. But for me, this approach doesn't work. It's like having a conversation where the other person isn't listening, but simply waiting to talk instead of reacting to each other and letting the conversation go where it will. On the other hand, I've found collaborations that have worked out great in both matching my talent and temperament. I connected with an artist on the other side of the globe to fabricate my character designs for my animated films by just messaging them on Etsy, and we've been collaborating for 5 or 6 years. So making sure that you pick the right partnership to match or offset your laid-back or dominant personality is essential. If you're working solo, your habits are probably set in stone. Maybe you've developed an incredible sense of discipline or distinct creative voice. But let's face it, it's easy to get stuck in your ways. You might resist feedback or find it challenging to work with others after so many years of being your own boss. So how do we fix this? Well, we start small. Share your work with a friend and ask for honest feedback. Join a low-pressure meetup or an online forum where you can interact without overcommitting. That's important. For example, a longtime animator might join a Discord server for indie animators to share tips and tricks. Each step is a reminder that collaboration doesn't dilute your creativity, it just adds to it. And if you tend to be less assertive, the fix is still the same. But we also have to make sure from the very beginning that your collaborator is genuinely looking for what you bring to the table and not just something that they don't know how to do. In a true collaboration, it's boring to know what the end result will be, right? That's just like pinning A to B to get to C. But when you let go of your expectations, the result is something you've never imagined, which is sometimes scary, but always exciting. My son creates the music for my films, and when we start a project, I give him notes on what I'm looking for, and when he presents the version that we ultimately end up using, in most cases, on the first few listens, it almost always sounds wrong. However, after I listen to it more, I just know that it couldn't be any other way. And for me, that's the best collaboration. So for all this talk of stepping out of our creative isolation, it brings us right back to where we find ourselves in a lot of my videos, and that's balance. So remember to first protect your alone time. Block off dedicated time to focus on your craft without interruptions. Also, stay connected. Schedule regular check-ins with peers, whether it's a monthly Zoom call or a weekly coffee date. Seek feedback. Don't be afraid to ask for constructive criticism. It's how we grow. And we should always be looking for inspiration. Explore diverse communities, attend events, or simply chat with people outside of your usual circle. Always important, remember your mental and emotional health matter just as much as your creative output. I would say more. Whether it's therapy, exercise, or just stepping away from your work, make time for your self-care. And lastly, listening to me telling you what you may want to try is only the start. Now it comes to the most essential part, and that's actually going online and searching for a group or asking someone for their opinion of your work. Give it a try, really. After you're done with this video, get out there and try it. That's the only way you're going to get results. Okay, I've run out of words, so I'll leave you with those of Russian physician, playwright, and writer Anton Chekhov, who, when speaking to the challenges and potential benefits of creative isolation, said, "Isolation in creative work is an onerous thing. Better to have negative criticism than nothing at all." Thanks for watching. See you next video. Bye.